Marcus Whitmore grabbed his ex-wife's wrist so hard, the bailiff stepped forward. "You think you've won," he hissed across the courtroom. "I will bury you." Elena didn't flinch. She'd waited 3 years for this moment. 3 years of collecting evidence. 3 years of pretending to be stupid. 3 years of watching him lie. Now the judge was asking the one question Marcus never expected, and Elena finally had permission to speak. If you want to see how one quiet woman destroyed a billion-dollar empire with nothing but patience and a USB drive, subscribe now and watch until the end. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Elena Marshall sat motionless in the defendant's chair of courtroom 4B. Her hands rested flat on the cold oak table. Her breathing was steady. Her eyes never left the Great Seal of Washington State, hanging above Judge Hawkins' head. To everyone watching, she looked defeated. That was exactly what she wanted them to think. "Mr. Stone, you may proceed with your closing arguments," Judge Robert Hawkins said, adjusting his spectacles. Victor Stone rose from his chair, like a man who'd already won the lottery and was just waiting to cash the check. At 62, he'd earned his nickname, the Closer, by never losing a high-asset divorce case. His silver hair was slicked back. His Italian shoes clicked against the marble floor. He walked toward the jury box, letting the silence build. "Ladies and gentlemen," Stone began, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "we have spent 3 days in this courtroom, 3 days listening to accusations, 3 days examining evidence. And what have we learned?" He turned slowly, pointing at Elena. "We have learned that Mrs. Whitmore, Ms. Marshall, is a woman scorned. A woman who cannot accept that her marriage failed. A woman who would rather destroy her children's father than admit her own shortcomings." Elena didn't react. She'd trained herself not to react. 3 years of practice. "My client, Marcus Whitmore, built Whitmore Properties from nothing." Stone continued, pacing now. "He started with one rental house in Tacoma. Today, he owns 47 commercial buildings across the Pacific Northwest. He employs over 200 people. He pays his taxes. He contributes to this community." Stone paused, shaking his head sadly. "And what does Ms. Marshall bring to this custody discussion? Allegations, rumors, the testimony of a disgruntled nanny who was fired for stealing." In the gallery, Marcus Whitmore nodded solemnly. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Elena's car. His jaw was set in an expression of wounded dignity. Beside him sat Sophia Chen, his 29-year-old girlfriend. She clutched a designer purse, her face arranged in careful sympathy. "The respondent claims my client hid assets," Stone said. "Yet she provides no documentation. She claims emotional abuse, yet presents no witnesses. She claims—" "Your Honor." Diana Chen stood up from Elena's side of the table. She was 34, exhausted and running on her 6th cup of coffee. As a lawyer for the Domestic Violence Legal Aid Coalition, she handled 40 cases at any given time. She had no paralegals, no investigators, no budget for expert witnesses. What she had was Elena Marshall, who had walked into her office 3 years ago with a box of files and a plan. "Objection," Diana said. "Counsel is testifying rather than arguing." "Sustained." Judge Hawkins made a note. "Mr. Stone, please limit yourself to the evidence presented." Stone smiled thinly. "Of course, Your Honor. I apologize." He turned back to the jury. "Let me speak plainly. Ms. Marshall wants full custody of 2 minor children. She wants the family home. She wants spousal support of $15,000 per month. And what is her basis for these demands?" He held up his fingers, counting. 1, a nanny who claims she heard arguments. 2, financial records she admits she doesn't fully understand. 3, her own testimony that my client was controlling. That's it. That's all she has. Elena's fingers twitched slightly on the table. Diana noticed. She leaned over and whispered, "Not yet." "I know," Elena whispered back. Stone was building to his crescendo now. Marcus Whitmore is not a perfect man. No man is. But he is a devoted father. He coaches his son's little league team. He attends every piano recital. He has offered Ms. Marshall a generous settlement, $5,000 per month in spousal support, shared custody, and the opportunity to purchase the family home at fair market value. He spread his hands. She refused. She wants everything. She wants to destroy the man who gave her a life she could never have achieved on her own. Marcus allowed a small, sad smile to cross his face. Elena watched him. She remembered that smile. She'd seen it the night he pushed their son down the stairs and told her no one would ever believe her. In conclusion, Stone said, I ask this court to grant primary custody to Marcus Whitmore with supervised visitation for Ms. Marshall until she completes a psychological evaluation. I ask that spousal support be denied, given Ms. Marshall's employable status and lack of contribution to the marital assets. And I ask that the family home remain with my client, who built it with his own hands and his own money. He returned to his seat, buttoning his jacket. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Judge Hawkins turned to Diana. Ms. Chen, your closing argument. Diana stood. Her suit was off the rack. Her shoes were scuffed. She looked exactly like what she was, an overworked public interest lawyer facing a legal machine funded by millions. Your Honor, members of the jury. Wait. Elena's voice cut through the courtroom. Judge Hawkins frowned. Ms. Marshall, you are speaking out of turn. I apologize, Your Honor. Elena stood slowly. But I would like to request permission to address the court directly regarding the welfare of my children. Stone was on his feet immediately. Objection. This is highly irregular. She has counsel. I have the right to speak on behalf of my own children. Elena said, her voice steady. And I have evidence that was not included in Ms. Chen's presentation. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters in the gallery leaned forward. Judge Hawkins studied Elena for a long moment. He'd been on the bench for 30 years. He'd seen every trick, every manipulation, every desperate ploy. But something about this woman's stillness caught his attention. She didn't look desperate. She looked like someone who'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Mr. Stone, the judge said, do you object to the respondent addressing the court? Stone glanced at Marcus. Marcus shrugged slightly. Let her hang herself. No objection, Your Honor. We're confident the court will see through whatever theatrics Ms. Marshall has prepared. Very well. Judge Hawkins nodded to Elena. Ms. Marshall, you may address the court, but I warn you, this is a court of law, not a platform for emotional appeals. Stick to facts. I understand, Your Honor. Elena walked around the table. She didn't approach the jury box. She walked to the center of the courtroom and turned to face the judge directly. 3 years ago, she began, I filed for divorce. I had no money of my own. I had no family nearby. I had 2 children under the age of 10 and a husband who controlled every aspect of my life. Marcus rolled his eyes performatively for the jury. Mr. Stone is correct that I don't have a psychological evaluation proving abuse. I don't have recordings of arguments. I don't have photographs of bruises. Stone smiled. This was going well. What I do have, Elena continued, is a background that my husband apparently forgot about. Before I became Mrs. Whitmore, before I became a stay-at-home mother, before I disappeared into his world, I had a career. She paused. I was a forensic accountant for the IRS. The courtroom went silent. Marcus's smile froze. Excuse me, Stone said. Your Honor, this is... I spent 8 years tracking financial fraud. Elena continued, her voice gaining strength. I traced hidden assets through shell companies in 12 countries. I helped prosecute cases involving hundreds of millions of dollars. I left that career because my husband said a mother should stay home with her children. She turned to face Marcus directly. But I never forgot how to read a ledger. Marcus leaned toward Stone. She's bluffing. She worked at a non-profit when I met her. After the IRS, Elena said, as if she'd heard him. I took a lower-paying job at a non-profit because I was burned out. That's where Marcus met me. He assumed I was just a paper pusher. He never asked about my previous career. He didn't care. Your Honor. Stone interrupted, standing. This is irrelevant. Her employment history doesn't. It's relevant, Elena said, because 3 years ago, when I started planning this divorce, I used every skill I'd ever learned to document my husband's crimes. She reached into the pocket of her simple gray dress and pulled out a USB drive. I submitted this to the bailiff this morning under seal marked for emergency review regarding perjury and fraud. Stone turned pale. Your Honor, we've had no opportunity to review this evidence. This is an ambush. Mr. Stone, Judge Hawkins said slowly, your client testified under oath yesterday that he had no hidden assets and no offshore accounts. Is that correct? That's correct, Your Honor, and... Then, if Ms. Marshall's evidence proves otherwise, your client has committed perjury in my courtroom. The judge's voice hardened. I take that very seriously. Bailiff, bring me that drive. The bailiff retrieved the manila envelope from the evidence table and handed it to the judge. Marcus grabbed Stone's arm. Do something. I'm trying, Stone hissed. You told me there was nothing to find. There isn't. Judge Hawkins plugged the USB drive into his laptop. The courtroom waited. Elena stood perfectly still. Her heart was pounding, but her face showed nothing. 3 years. 3 years of copying files late at night while Marcus slept. 3 years of photographing documents. 3 years of tracing wire transfers through a maze of shell companies. She'd found everything. The judge clicked through the files. His expression shifted from skepticism to surprise to something that looked like disgust. Mr. Whitmore, the judge said, his voice dangerously quiet. According to these documents, which appear to be authenticated bank records from the Cayman Islands, you have $12 million in an account under the name Pacific Holdings, LLC. The gallery gasped. Marcus shot to his feet. That's fabricated. She created those documents. Sit down, Mr. Whitmore. The judge's voice cracked like a whip. These records include digital signature keys from First Caribbean International Bank. They would be extremely difficult to fabricate. Your Honor, Stone began. There's more. Judge Hawkins scrolled. Wire transfers to a property in Costa Rica, a trust fund in Singapore in the name of... He squinted. Sophia Chen. Every head in the courtroom turned to Marcus's girlfriend. Sophia's face drained of color. I didn't, Marcus, what is this? Shut up, Marcus snapped. Mr. Whitmore. The judge slammed his gavel. You will not speak to anyone that way in my courtroom. Another outburst and I will hold you in contempt. Elena watched her ex-husband's mask cracking. The charming smile was gone. The wounded dignity had evaporated. What remained was the face. She knew the face that had screamed at her in the kitchen, the face that had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises, the face that had told her she was nothing and no one would ever believe her. But that's not the evidence I wanted to present today, Elena said quietly. The courtroom fell silent again. The money is for the financial proceedings. What I want to discuss is custody. And for that, I need the court to ask my husband one question. Judge Hawkins looked at her. What question, Miss Marshall? Ask him where he was on the night of October 14th, the night our son Noah ended up in the emergency room with a broken arm. Marcus went completely still. Stone grabbed his client's arm. Don't answer that. The hospital report says Noah fell down the stairs, Elena continued. It says the nanny was watching him. It says Marcus was at a charity gala downtown. She turned to face the jury. The nanny was paid $50,000 to say that. I have the bank transfer, and I have something else. She looked back at the judge. I have a recording. No. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. No, that's not possible. The baby monitor in Noah's room, Elena said. It had a cloud backup feature. Marcus didn't know that. He thought when he deleted the local files, he deleted everything. She looked directly at her ex-husband. You didn't. Marcus launched himself forward, shoving past Stone, reaching for Elena. You bitch, you lying scheming. The bailiff was faster. He grabbed Marcus by the arm and forced him back. Mr. Whitmore. Judge Hawkins was standing now, his face thunderous. One more step toward the petitioner, and you will be in handcuffs. Bailiff, if he moves again, restrain him. Marcus was breathing hard, his carefully constructed facade completely destroyed. His eyes were wild. His hands were shaking. This was the man Elena had lived with for 12 years. This was the man who had convinced everyone he was a pillar of the community. This was the man who had pushed a 7-year-old boy down a staircase because the child accidentally spilled juice on his briefcase. Your Honor. Elena said, her voice calm despite her racing heart. I request that you play the file labeled October 14 Baby Monitor. Judge Hawkins looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Marcus, who was still being held by the bailiff. Mr. Stone, the judge said, do you wish to object? Stone was staring at his client like he'd never seen him before. No, Your Honor, Stone said quietly. No objection. The judge clicked the file, static first, then the sound of a door slamming, then Marcus's voice, not the smooth public voice, but something else, something slurred and ugly. I told you to stay out of my way. A child's voice, small, terrified. Daddy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry doesn't fix my briefcase. Do you know how much that cost? Please, Daddy, I'll clean it up. A thud, a crack, a scream, then silence. Then Sophia's voice panicked. Marcus, oh my God, he's not moving. Marcus, we have to call 911. Then Marcus, suddenly cold and sober. No, call the nanny. Tell her if she doesn't say he fell, she'll never work in this city again. Do you understand me? But Marcus, his arm, do it. The recording ended. The courtroom was absolutely silent. In the gallery, reporters were typing furiously. Sophia had buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Stone had stepped away from his client, physically distancing himself. Marcus stood alone. Elena looked at the man she had married. The man who had charmed her at a coffee shop 12 years ago. The man who had promised to take care of her. The man who had slowly, methodically isolated her from everyone she loved and convinced her she was worthless. I stayed quiet for 3 days. Elena said, her voice carrying through the silent room. I let him lie. I let his lawyer call me unstable. I let them paint me as a bitter ex-wife. She turned to face the jury. I had to, because if I had shown this evidence earlier, he would have settled. He would have paid me off and buried this recording in a confidentiality agreement. His lawyers would have found some way to suppress it. She looked at the judge. I needed him to commit perjury first. I needed him to lie under oath about the money and about that night. I needed him to show this court who he really is. Judge Hawkins closed his laptop slowly. Mr. Whitmore, the judge said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. I have heard enough. He looked at the bailiff. Take him into custody. Elena Marshall sat perfectly still as they handcuffed her ex-husband. The courtroom erupted, reporters shouting questions. Sophia screaming that she didn't know. Stone packing his briefcase and heading for the exit. Through it all, Elena didn't move. She was thinking about Noah, about picking him up from school today and telling him Daddy wouldn't be hurting anyone anymore. She was thinking about her daughter Emma, who still flinched when men raised their voices. She was thinking about the 3 years she'd spent planning this moment. The sleepless nights, the fear, the moments she'd almost given up. It was worth it. Every second of silence had been worth it. But as they dragged Marcus toward the door, he twisted around to face her one last time. This isn't over, he snarled. I have lawyers you can't even imagine. I will destroy you, Elena. I will take everything. Elena met his eyes. You already tried, she said quietly. You failed. The doors closed behind him, and Elena Marshall finally let herself breathe. The bailiff's grip on Marcus tightened as they dragged him toward the side door, but Marcus planted his feet and twisted back one final time. "Stone!" he screamed. "Do something! Call Judge Patterson! Call the governor!" Victor. Stone didn't look up. He was already packing his briefcase, his movements mechanical, his face the color of old cement. 30 years of winning had not prepared him for this moment. Stone. The doors swung shut, and then there was silence. Elena stood in the center of the courtroom, her legs suddenly weak beneath her. 3 years of planning, 3 years of waiting, 3 years of pretending to be the stupid, broken woman Marcus believed her to be. It was over. Diana Chen rushed to her side. "Elena, Elena, sit down. You're shaking." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You just took down a multimillionaire in open court. Sit." Elena let Diana guide her back to the table. Her hands were trembling now, the adrenaline draining from her body, like water from a cracked vessel. Judge Hawkins was speaking, but Elena could barely hear him. Something about custody, something about emergency protective orders, something about scheduling a hearing for asset division. Then a phrase cut through the fog. "Sole legal and physical custody is hereby granted to the petitioner, Elena Marshall, effective immediately." Elena's head snapped up. The judge was looking directly at her, and for the first time, she saw something like respect in his eyes. "Ms. Marshall, I've been on this bench for 30 years. I've seen a lot of cases. I've never seen anyone do what you just did." Elena swallowed hard. "I did what I had to do, Your Honor." "You waited." The judge shook his head slowly. "You let him bury you for 3 days, and you waited. That takes a kind of courage most people don't have." He gathered his papers. "Court is adjourned. Ms. Chen, file the emergency motions by end of business today. I'll sign them before I leave." The gavel cracked, and suddenly the room exploded. Reporters surged forward shouting questions. Camera flashes popped from the gallery. Bodies pressed against the wooden barrier separating the spectators from the council tables. "Ms. Marshall, did you know about the offshore accounts the whole time?" "Elena, how long were you planning this?" "Is it true your son is still in therapy?" Diana grabbed Elena's arm. "Back door, now." They pushed through a side entrance, Diana practically dragging Elena down a narrow hallway that smelled of old paper and floor polish. Behind them, the chaos of the courtroom faded into muffled shouting. "There's a car waiting," Diana said, pulling out her phone. "I called it the minute you showed the USB drive. I knew this was going to be a circus." "Where's Noah?" Elena asked, her mind suddenly snapping into focus. "Where's Emma? Marcus knows people. If he makes a call from holding, already handled." Diana pushed open a metal door, and gray Seattle light flooded the hallway. "Your neighbor picked them up from school an hour ago. They're at her house. They don't know anything yet." A black sedan idled at the curb. Diana opened the back door and pushed Elena inside, then climbed in after her. "Go," Diana told the driver. "Take the back streets." The car pulled away from the courthouse just as the first news vans came screeching around the corner. Elena leaned back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. "I can't believe it worked," she whispered. "Worked?" Diana laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "Elena, you didn't just win a custody case. You got a billionaire arrested for perjury, fraud, and child abuse in the span of 15 minutes. That's not working. That's nuclear warfare. He'll make bail. Maybe his assets are frozen until the court sorts through your evidence. That could take weeks." Elena opened her eyes. "He has crypto, hidden wallets, things I couldn't trace." Diana's smile faded. "How do you know?" "Because I know him. Marcus always has a backup plan. Always." Elena turned to look out the window at the gray Seattle skyline. "This isn't over. He's going to come after me." "He's in custody. For now." The car wound through downtown past the steel and glass towers that Marcus had helped build. Elena remembered the first time he'd driven her through this neighborhood, pointing out buildings he owned, restaurants where he had reserved tables, clubs where everyone knew his name. She'd been so impressed. So stupid. Elena. Diana's voice was gentle now. You need to go home. See your kids. Take a breath. I'll handle the paperwork. The hearing for asset division is in 2 weeks. You have time. The restraining order. I'm filing it today. Emergency protective order. He won't be able to come within 500 feet of you or the children. Elena nodded slowly, but she couldn't shake the feeling coiling in her stomach. The feeling that 3 years of planning had only been the beginning. Marcus Whitmore did not lose. He had never lost anything in his life. And she had just humiliated him in front of the entire city. The car pulled up to a modest house in Ballard. Elena's neighbor Margaret was waiting on the porch. She was 72 years old, had raised 4 children of her own, and had been the first person to notice the bruises on Elena's arms 3 years ago. She was also the only person who knew the whole plan. They're in the kitchen, Margaret said as Elena climbed out of the car. Emma's doing homework. Noah's drawing. Do they know just that you had to be in court today? Margaret gripped Elena's hand. You did it, didn't you? I saw the news vans heading downtown. Elena nodded. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Good. That man deserves everything he gets. Elena walked through the front door of Margaret's house, and the smell of fresh cookies hit her immediately. Chocolate chip. Margaret's specialty. She found them in the kitchen exactly where Margaret said they'd be. Emma, 12 years old, was hunched over a math worksheet, her dark hair falling across her face. Noah, 7, was drawing something with fierce concentration, his tongue poking out of the corner of his mouth. Neither of them looked up when she entered. Elena stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching them. Her children. The reason she had endured 12 years of marriage to a monster. The reason she had spent 3 years building a case instead of just running. She couldn't run. If she ran, Marcus would have found her. He would have used his money and his lawyers and his connections to take them away from her. He would have painted her as an unstable mother who abandoned her family. So she stayed. She gathered evidence. She waited. And now it was done. Mom? Noah spotted her first. He dropped his crayon and launched himself across the kitchen, wrapping his arms around her waist. You're back. Margaret made cookies. Elena knelt down and hugged him tight, breathing in the little boy's smell of sweat and grass and chocolate. I see that, she said, her voice thick. Did you save me one? I saved you 3. Noah pulled back, his face serious. Because you had a hard day. Margaret said court days are hard. Elena brushed the hair back from his forehead, her fingers instinctively checking the faint scar near his hairline. The scar from that night. Court days are hard, she agreed. But today was a good day. Emma hadn't moved from the table. She was watching Elena with those 2 old eyes, the eyes of a child who had learned to read adult silences. Is it over? Emma asked quietly. Elena straightened up, meeting her daughter's gaze. Emma knew more than Noah. She was old enough to remember the arguments, the slammed doors, the nights when Elena had locked them all in the bedroom while Marcus raged downstairs. The custody part is over, Elena said carefully. The judge gave us to me. Your father won't be... He won't be coming around for a while. Emma's face didn't change. Is he in jail? Yes, for now. Will he stay there? Elena hesitated. She wanted to lie. She wanted to promise her daughter that Marcus would never hurt them again, that the monster was gone, that they were finally safe. But Elena had promised herself she would never lie to her children, not after watching Marcus lie so effortlessly for so many years. I don't know, she admitted. He might get out on bail, but there will be a restraining order. He won't be allowed near us. Restraining orders don't stop people, Emma said flatly. Jessica's mom had a restraining order against her dad. He still showed up at their house. Elena crossed the kitchen and sat down across from her daughter. You're right, she said. Restraining orders are just paper. They don't stop someone who really wants to hurt you. But your father isn't like Jessica's dad. Your father cares about one thing more than anything else in the world. What? His reputation, his company, his empire. Elena reached across the table and took Emma's hand. Right now, everyone in Seattle knows what he did. The recording is going to be on the news tonight. If he comes near us, if he does anything to threaten us, he won't just go to jail. He'll lose everything he ever built. Emma considered this. He pushed Noah down the stairs, she said quietly. Over a briefcase. I know. I heard it. That night. I was in my room, and I heard Noah scream. Elena's heart cracked. I know, baby. I know. Why didn't you do something then? Why did we have to wait 3 years? Elena had asked herself that question 1,000 times. Why had she waited? Why had she let them live in that house for 3 more years after that night, tiptoeing around Marcus's moods, flinching at his footsteps? Because if I had acted that night, I would have lost, Elena said honestly. I had no evidence. The hospital report said Noah fell. The nanny backed up your father's story. If I had tried to take you and run, his lawyers would have destroyed me. I would have lost custody, and then you would have been alone with him. Emma's eyes widened slightly. I had to be smart, Elena continued. I had to be patient. I had to build a case so strong that even all of his money and all of his lawyers couldn't tear it apart. That took time. 3 years. 3 years. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she squeezed Elena's hand. I'm glad you waited, she whispered. I'm glad you got him. Elena pulled her daughter into a hug, holding her tight. They stayed like that for a long time, the two of them, while Noah happily munched cookies at the counter, oblivious to the weight of the moment. Margaret appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale. Elena, you need to see this. She led Elena to the living room, where an old television was tuned to the local news. Noah followed, cookie in hand. Emma hung back in the kitchen doorway watching. The screen showed the front of the courthouse. Police cars, news vans, a crowd of reporters, and then Marcus. He was being led out in handcuffs. His Italian suit rumpled, his perfectly styled hair falling across his forehead. He was shouting something at the cameras, but the audio was muted. Then the screen cut to a blonde news anchor with perfect teeth. Unprecedented scenes today at the King County Courthouse, where real estate mogul Marcus Whitmore was arrested following explosive testimony from his ex-wife. Sources say Elena Marshall presented evidence of financial fraud, perjury, and child abuse, including an audio recording allegedly capturing Whitmore assaulting his 7-year-old son. Elena watched her stomach churning. Whitmore's attorney, Victor Stone, declined to comment. Meanwhile, the Seattle Police Department confirms that an investigation is underway. If convicted on all charges, Whitmore could face up to 15 years in federal prison. The screen changed to show an old photograph. Elena and Marcus at a charity gala, smiling for the cameras. She remembered that night. She'd had to cover a bruise on her arm with concealer. Elena Marshall, formerly a forensic accountant with the IRS, reportedly gathered evidence against her ex-husband over a period of several years. Legal experts are calling it one of the most dramatic courtroom confrontations in Seattle history. Margaret muted the television. It's everywhere, she said. Every channel. They're calling you the silent wife. Elena sank onto the couch. She hadn't wanted this. She hadn't wanted fame or attention or reporters camped outside her house. She had just wanted her children to be safe. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and looked at the screen. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, email notifications scrolling endlessly. And then a new message appeared. Unknown number. She opened it. 4 words. This isn't over. M. Elena's blood ran cold. She showed the phone to Margaret. He's out already. No. Margaret shook her head. They can't process bail that fast. Someone sent that for him. Elena stared at the message. Her hands were shaking again. 3 years of planning. 3 years of building the perfect case. 3 years of waiting for the right moment to strike. And Marcus was already fighting back. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Check the news. Elena unmuted the television. The blonde anchor was back, but her expression had changed. She looked excited now, almost gleeful. Breaking news out of the King County Courthouse. We're receiving reports that Marcus Whitmore's legal team has filed an emergency motion challenging the evidence presented by Elena Marshall. Sources say they're claiming the audio recording was manipulated using artificial intelligence. Elena stopped breathing. According to court documents filed just minutes ago, Whitmore's attorneys are arguing that the recording is a sophisticated deep fake created by Ms. Marshall, who they describe as a disgruntled ex-wife with the technical expertise to fabricate audio evidence. The screen showed Victor Stone standing on the courthouse steps, microphones thrust toward his face. "My client is the victim of an elaborate hoax," Stone said, his voice steady and confident. Ms. Marshall is a former IRS investigator with extensive knowledge of digital forensics. She used that knowledge to create a fake recording designed to destroy my client's reputation. We will prove this in court, and when we do, we will be seeking full custody of the children and criminal charges against Ms. Marshall for fraud, perjury, and parental alienation. The screen cut back to the anchor. The judge has scheduled an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning to address these claims. Until then, Marcus Whitmore remains in custody, though his attorneys say they're confident he will be released pending the outcome of the forensic analysis. Elena felt the room spin. "That's not possible," she whispered. "The recording is real. I didn't fake anything." "Of course you didn't." Margaret gripped her shoulder. "But he's got money, Elena. He's got lawyers. He's going to throw everything at you." Emma appeared in the doorway. Her face was white. "Mom, what's happening?" Elena looked at her daughter, at Noah still clutching his cookie, confused by the adult tension in the room. She had won today, but Marcus was right. It wasn't over. It wasn't anywhere close to over. And the man who had pushed her son down the stairs, who had isolated her from everyone she loved, who had spent 12 years convincing her she was worthless, was now going to use every resource he had to destroy her. Elena's phone rang. Diana Chen. She answered. "Elena, don't panic." Diana's voice was tight. "I just saw the news. It's a Hail Mary. They've got nothing. They're saying I faked the recording. They can say whatever they want. We have the original file with metadata showing it came from the baby monitor's cloud server. We have the nanny's bank records showing the $50,000 payment. We have Diana." Elena cut her off. "He sent me a message from an unknown number. He said it isn't over." Silence on the other end. Then Diana swore. "He shouldn't have access to a phone. He's in custody. Someone sent it for him. I'll call the prosecutor. That's witness intimidation. It's another charge." "Another charge won't stop him." Elena looked at the television where they were now showing file footage of Marcus at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, smiling his perfect smile. "He doesn't care about charges. He cares about winning. And right now he thinks he can still win." "Elena, listen to me. The hearing tomorrow is just about the forensic analysis. The evidence is solid. I've worked with digital forensics experts before. They can verify the recording is authentic within hours. This is a delay tactic, nothing more. And if they find some way to discredit it, they won't. But if they do..." Diana was quiet for a long moment. "Then we fight," she said finally. "We have other evidence. The financial records, the nanny's testimony, the hospital records showing Noah's injury. It won't be as dramatic as the recording, but it's enough." Elena closed her eyes. "I should have known," she murmured. "I should have known he wouldn't go down easy." "You did know. That's why you spent 3 years building this case. That's why you waited until he perjured himself. You prepared for this, Elena. You prepared for him to fight back." Had she, Elena, thought about the box of files still sitting in the storage unit across town? The emails she hadn't submitted yet? The photographs? The journal entries? She had more evidence. She'd kept some in reserve just in case. Maybe she had prepared for this after all. "The hearing's at 9 tomorrow," Elena asked. 9 sharp. Judge Hawkins is presiding again. He didn't look happy about Stone's motion. "Good. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Elena hung up. She looked at her children, at Margaret, at the television still showing Marcus's face. Sleep. She almost laughed. She hadn't slept properly in 3 years. One more night wouldn't kill her. But as she gathered Noah and Emma and led them toward Margaret's guest room, as she helped them brush their teeth and put on pajamas and climb into the unfamiliar bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something she hadn't planned for. Something Marcus had been saving for exactly this moment. Her phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number again. "Ask your lawyer about the Cayman documents. Ask her where they really came from. M." Elena stared at the message. Then she deleted it. But the words stayed with her, burning in her mind as she lay down beside her children and pretended to sleep. Elena didn't sleep. She lay in the dark listening to Noah's soft breathing, to Emma's occasional whimper as she dreamed, and she thought about Marcus's message. Ask your lawyer about the Cayman documents. Ask her where they really came from. What did that mean? She had found those documents herself, 3 years ago late at night, copying files from Marcus's home computer while he slept. She had traced the shell companies through public records. She had found the bank statements buried in folders Marcus thought were encrypted. Diana had nothing to do with it. Unless... Elena sat up slowly, careful not to wake the children. Unless Diana had helped her trace something she shouldn't have been able to trace. She thought back to their first meeting. Diana had been so eager to take her case, so confident that they could win. At the time, Elena had assumed it was because Diana believed in her, because Diana wanted to help domestic violence survivors. But what if there was another reason Elena slipped out of bed and padded to the bathroom? She closed the door and turned on the light, pulling out her phone. She scrolled through her messages with Diana, hundreds of them over 3 years, strategy discussions, evidence reviews, court date reminders. And then she found it. A message from 18 months ago. "Got a tip about the Singapore Trust. Check the beneficiary structure. You'll find what you need." Elena stared at the words. A tip. Diana had gotten a tip about the Singapore Trust. From who? Elena's hands were shaking as she dialed Diana's number. It was 2 in the morning, but Diana answered on the second ring. "Elena, what's wrong? Are you okay? Who told you about the Singapore Trust?" Silence. "Diana, 18 months ago, you sent me a message saying you got a tip. Who was it from?" More silence. "Diana?" "Elena, calm down. Let me explain." "Explain what? Who gave you that information?" Diana's voice dropped. "I can't tell you that." "Why not?" "Because I promised I wouldn't. Because if Marcus finds out who it was, that person's life is in danger." Elena's mind raced. Is this why Marcus is claiming the documents are fake? Does he know where they really came from? No, he doesn't know anything. He's guessing. He's trying to rattle you. Then why can't you tell me? Because... Diana stopped. Because the source is someone close to him. Someone who has access to information she shouldn't have shared. If this comes out in court, Marcus's lawyers will tear her apart. They'll claim she stole confidential documents. They'll say the evidence is fruit of the poisonous tree. Elena felt the floor drop out from under her. Are you telling me our evidence might be inadmissible? No, the evidence is real. Everything on that USB drive is authentic, but how we got some of it, that's complicated. How complicated? Diana was quiet for a long moment. The source is Sophia Chen. Elena stopped breathing. Marcus's girlfriend. The woman who was sitting in court yesterday. That's Sophia. She came to me 6 months after Marcus started seeing her. She said she'd seen things, heard things. She was terrified, Elena. He'd already started controlling her the same way he controlled you. She wanted out, but she didn't know how. So you used her to get evidence against him. I gave her a way to help herself. If Marcus goes down, she's free. If he walks, she's trapped. Elena sank onto the edge of the bathtub. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Does Stone know about this? I don't think so, but Marcus is smart. If he figures out Sophia was feeding me information, he'll destroy her. Yes. Elena thought about Sophia sitting in that courtroom. The designer purse, the cream suit, the perfectly applied makeup hiding God knows what underneath. She'd assumed Sophia was the enemy. Another woman Marcus had charmed into complicity. She never considered that Sophia might be another victim. What do we do? Elena asked. We stay the course. The forensic analysis will prove the recording is real. The financial documents are public record, even if Sophia pointed us toward them. As long as she doesn't testify, as long her name stays out of it, we're fine. And if Marcus figures it out? Diana didn't answer. Elena closed her eyes. I need to talk to her. Absolutely not. Elena, that's the worst thing you could do right now. If anyone sees you with Sophia, Marcus will know immediately. Then how do I protect her? You don't. You focus on your children. You focus on tomorrow's hearing. You let me handle Sophia. Elena wanted to argue, but Diana was right. She had enough to worry about without adding Marcus's girlfriend to the list. Fine, Elena said. But if something happens to her, if Marcus hurts her because of what she did for us, it won't come to that, I promise. Elena hung up. She stared at herself in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair tangled from tossing and turning. The face of a woman who had been fighting for so long she'd forgotten what peace looked like. One more day, she told herself. Get through tomorrow. Prove the recording is real. Then it's over. But even as she thought it, she knew it was a lie. Men like Marcus didn't stop fighting until they had nothing left. And Marcus Whitmore had billions. The morning came too fast. Elena left the children with Margaret and drove to the courthouse alone. Diana had offered to pick her up, but Elena needed the time to think, to prepare herself for whatever was coming. The press was already camped outside when she arrived. News vans lined the street, reporters clustered near the entrance, cameras ready. Elena kept her head down and pushed through the crowd. Ms. Marshall, any comment on the deepfake allegations? Elena, is it true you fabricated the recording? Did you really work for the IRS? She didn't answer. She didn't look at them. She just kept walking until she reached the courthouse doors. Diana was waiting inside. You look terrible, Diana said. Thanks. Did you sleep at all? No. Diana handed her a cup of coffee. Drink this, and try to look confident. The cameras in the courtroom will catch every expression. They walked together toward courtroom 4B, the same room where Elena had torn Marcus's life apart yesterday, the same room where her fate would be decided today. Judge Hawkins was already on the bench when they entered. He looked tired too, like he'd spent the night reviewing documents. Victor Stone sat at the defense table, his silver hair perfectly in place, his confidence seemingly restored. But there was no Marcus. Elena leaned toward Diana. Where is he? Still in custody. His attorneys couldn't post bail in time. They're trying to get it done this morning. Elena felt a small relief. At least she wouldn't have to look at his face. All rise, the bailiff announced. Everyone stood, then sat again as Judge Hawkins waved them down. We're here to address the emergency motion filed by the defense regarding the authenticity of audio evidence presented yesterday. The judge looked at Stone. Mr. Stone, you're claiming the recording is a deepfake. Stone stood. Yes, Your Honor. We have retained a forensic audio expert who has preliminary findings suggesting the recording may have been manipulated using artificial intelligence. Preliminary findings. The expert needs more time to complete a full analysis, but his initial review indicates irregularities in the audio waveforms consistent with AI generation. Judge Hawkins turned to Diana. Ms. Chen. Diana stood. Your Honor, we've also retained a forensic expert, Dr. Patricia Webb from the University of Washington's Digital Forensics Lab. She has completed a comprehensive analysis overnight and is prepared to testify. Overnight? Stone scoffed. That's hardly thorough. Dr. Webb is one of the leading experts in audio forensics in the country, Diana shot back. She literally wrote the textbook on deepfake detection. I'll hear from both experts, Judge Hawkins said. Mr. Stone, call your witness. Stone's expert was a thin man named Dr. Robert Crane. He had a nervous habit of adjusting his glasses and spoke in a rapid monotone that made Elena's head hurt. In my preliminary analysis, Dr. Crane said, I observed certain frequency patterns that could be consistent with AI-generated audio. The speech patterns show smoothness that might indicate synthesis. Could be consistent, Diana interrupted during cross-examination. Might indicate, Doctor, do you have any definitive evidence that this recording was fabricated? Dr. Crane shifted uncomfortably. Well, definitive evidence would require a yes or no answer, please. Do you have definitive evidence? No. But the possibility... Thank you. No further questions. Then it was Diana's turn. Dr. Patricia Webb was the opposite of Dr. Crane. She was calm, confident, and spoke in clear language that anyone could understand. I analyzed the recording using 17 different deepfake detection algorithms. Dr. Webb testified. All 17 confirmed the audio is authentic human speech, not AI-generated. How can you be certain? Diana asked. Deepfake technology, no matter how advanced, leaves artifacts. Tiny imperfections in frequency distribution, breathing patterns, background noise. This recording has none of those artifacts. Additionally, I was able to verify the metadata which confirms the file originated from a Nest Baby monitor registered to the Whitmore residence and was uploaded to cloud storage on October 14th at 8:47 p.m. The date of the alleged incident. Correct. And in your expert opinion, is this recording authentic? Dr. Webb looked directly at the judge. 100% authentic. This is a real recording of a real event. Stone tried to recover on cross-examination, but Dr. Webb was unshakable. Every question he threw at her, she answered with evidence and data. By the end, even Stone looked like he knew he'd lost. Judge Hawkins made notes throughout the testimony. When both experts had finished, he set down his pen and looked at Victor Stone. Mr. Stone, your motion is denied. The forensic evidence overwhelmingly supports the authenticity of the recording. Furthermore, I'm disturbed by what appears to be an attempt to mislead this court with unsubstantiated claims. Stone's face reddened. Your Honor, I'm not finished. This court has heard testimony from a credible expert that your client assaulted a 7-year-old child. We have authenticated audio of your client instructing a witness to lie about the incident, and we have evidence of extensive financial fraud committed under oath. The judge leaned forward. Where is your client, Mr. Stone? Still in custody, Your Honor. We're working on posting bail. Bail is revoked. Stone's jaw dropped. Excuse me. Given the severity of the charges and what I perceive to be ongoing attempts to obstruct justice, I'm revoking bail. Mr. Whitmore will remain in custody pending trial. Your Honor, that's my ruling. Judge Hawkins slammed his gavel. We're adjourned. Elena sat frozen in her chair. Bail revoked. Marcus couldn't buy his way out. He was going to stay in jail until trial. Diana grabbed her arm. Elena? Elena, did you hear that? I heard. We won. Again. This is huge. Elena nodded slowly, but she couldn't shake the cold feeling in her chest. It was too easy. Marcus had built an empire by never losing, by always having a backup plan, by always being 3 steps ahead. He wouldn't go down like this. There was something else coming. As they gathered their things to leave, Stone approached Diana. This isn't over, Ms. Chen. It looks pretty over to me. My client has resources you can't imagine. This case will be appealed. The custody decision will be challenged. Every piece of evidence will be scrutinized. Good luck with that. Stone smiled thinly. You should know we've subpoenaed your phone records. Diana went still. What? We're investigating the source of Ms. Marshall's evidence. If we find that you obtained any of it through illegal means, this entire case falls apart. And you lose your license. Elena watched Diana's face carefully. The color had drained from it. You have nothing, Diana said, but her voice wavered. We'll see. Stone turned to Elena. Enjoy your victory, Ms. Marshall. It won't last. He walked away. Diana stood frozen, her hands gripping her briefcase. Diana. Elena stepped closer. What did he mean about your phone records? Nothing. It's a scare tactic. Is it? Diana finally looked at her. And in that moment, Elena saw fear. Real fear. We need to talk, Diana said quietly. Not here. Somewhere private. They found a coffee shop 3 blocks from the courthouse. Diana chose a table in the back corner away from the windows. If they subpoena my phone records, Diana said, her voice barely above a whisper, they'll see the calls to Sophia, the texts, everything. So they'll know she was my source. They'll depose her. She'll have to testify. Can't she refuse? Not if they subpoena her. And if she lies under oath, she goes to prison. If she tells the truth... Diana shook her head. Marcus will know she betrayed him, and everything she gave us becomes questionable. Elena felt her victory crumbling around her. What do we do? I don't know. Diana rubbed her temples. I need to think. I need to talk to some people. There might be a way to protect her, but what? But it's risky. And it might not work. Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it. Then she answered. Hello. Elena? The voice was female, frightened. It's Sophia. Please, you have to help me. He knows. Marcus knows what I did. How? I don't know. Someone told him. He had his lawyer call me this morning. They're threatening to press charges. They're saying I stole documents. Sophia, listen to me. Where are you? I'm at a hotel, downtown. I left everything. My apartment, my things. I just ran. Which hotel? Sophia told her. Stay there. Don't talk to anyone. I'm coming. Elena hung up. Diana stared at her. You can't be serious. She's terrified. She helped us, and now Marcus is going to destroy her. If you're seen with her, it makes everything worse. I don't care. Elena stood up. Elena, think about this. Think about your children. I am thinking about my children. I'm thinking about what kind of mother I want to be. What kind of person. She grabbed her purse. Sophia risked everything to help us. I'm not going to abandon her. Diana closed her eyes. Then I'm coming with you. They found Sophia in a room on the 14th floor of the Marriott. She opened the door with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands. She looked nothing like the polished woman from the courtroom. Her hair was tangled. Her makeup was smeared. She was wearing the same clothes she'd worn yesterday. Thank you for coming, Sophia whispered. I didn't know who else to call. Elena stepped inside. Tell me everything. Sophia sank onto the bed. Marcus called me last night. From jail. I don't know how he got access to a phone, but he did. He said he knew I was the one who told Diana about the Singapore trust. He said when he gets out, he's going to make me pay. He's not getting out, Diana said. The judge revoked his bail. You don't understand. Sophia looked up, her eyes hollow. Marcus has people everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, police. He'll find a way. He always finds a way. Elena knelt in front of her. Sophia, why did you help us? Sophia was quiet for a moment. Because I saw what he did to Noah. Elena's breath caught. I was there that night. October 14th. I watched him push that little boy down the stairs because he spilled juice on a briefcase. And then I watched him calmly tell me to call the nanny and make her lie. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. I wanted to call 911. I wanted to scream, but I was so scared. He looked at me, and his eyes were so cold, and I knew if I did anything, he'd do the same thing to me. She grabbed Elena's hands. I'm so sorry. I should have done something. I should have helped Noah that night. Instead, I just did what Marcus told me. Elena squeezed her hands. You're helping now. That's what matters. It's too late. He's going to kill me. I know it. No. Elena's voice was firm. I'm not going to let that happen. She turned to Diana. What do we need to get her immunity full protection in exchange for testimony? Diana hesitated. If she testifies to everything she knows, if she gives us dates, times, documents, other witnesses, the prosecutor might deal. Then make the call. Diana pulled out her phone. Sophia looked at Elena with something like hope. You'd do that after everything. You were a victim too. I didn't see it before, but I see it now. Sophia started to cry again, but these were different tears. Relief, gratitude, the first kindness she'd received in 2 years. Diana stepped into the hallway to make her calls. Elena stayed with Sophia, holding her hand, listening as she poured out story after story of Marcus's cruelty. The isolation, the control, the threats. It was Elena's own marriage all over again. An hour later, Diana returned. The prosecutor's interested. They want to meet with Sophia tomorrow. What about protection? Elena asked. If she cooperates fully, they'll put her in a safe house until trial. Maybe witness protection after, depending on how things go. Sophia nodded slowly. I'll do it, whatever they need. Diana sat down. I have to warn you, this won't be easy. Stone is going to tear you apart on the stand. He's going to call you a liar, a thief, a scorned mistress. Are you ready for that? Sophia looked at Elena. You went through it, yesterday in that courtroom. You let them say terrible things about you. How did you do it? Elena smiled slightly. I thought about my children. I thought about what I was fighting for. And I reminded myself that the truth doesn't care what lies people tell about it. Sophia took a deep breath. Then I'm ready. Elena helped Sophia pack the few things she'd brought. Diana called a car to take her to a safe location for the night. As Sophia was leaving, she turned back one last time. Elena, thank you for believing me, for not hating me. Take care of yourself, Sophia. We'll get through this together. The door closed. Diana looked at Elena. You know this changes everything, right? With Sophia testifying, Marcus doesn't just lose the custody case. He goes away for a long time. Good. But it also means the next few weeks are going to be hell. He's going to throw everything he has at you, at Sophia, at me. Elena thought about her children, about Noah's scar, about Emma's nightmares. Let him try. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Mrs. Marshall. A man's voice. Official. Yes. This is Detective Morrison with the Seattle Police Department. I'm calling about your ex-husband. Elena's heart stopped. What about him? He's escaped custody, about an hour ago. We're not sure how, but he's gone. The room tilted. We've dispatched units to your home and your children's school. But ma'am, you need to get somewhere safe, right now. Elena couldn't speak. Marcus was free, and he was coming for her. Elena was already running before the detective finished speaking. My children, she gasped into the phone. Where are my children? Officers are en route to the address you provided, a Margaret Holloway's residence. That's where they are. Please get there first. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm and tell me your current location. Elena burst through the hotel lobby, Diana right behind her. I'm downtown, the Marriott on 5th. I'm heading to my children now. Don't do that. If Whitmore is watching your movements, you could lead him right to them. Let our officers secure the location first. Elena stopped on the sidewalk, her chest heaving. He was right. She knew he was right. But every cell in her body was screaming at her to run to Noah and Emma, to wrap her arms around them, to protect them with her own body if she had to. How long until your officers reach them? 8 minutes, maybe less. I'll wait here. But you call me the second they're safe. Do you understand the second? Yes, ma'am. Stay on the line. Diana grabbed Elena's arm. What's happening? Marcus escaped. He's out there somewhere. Diana's face went white. How is that possible? He was in federal custody. I don't know. I don't care. I just need to know my kids are safe. The next 8 minutes were the longest of Elena's life. She stood on that sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear, listening to radio chatter she couldn't fully understand. Police codes, street names, units responding. Diana paced beside her, making her own calls. Trying to reach the prosecutor. Trying to understand how a man in federal custody could simply vanish. Finally, Detective Morrison's voice came back. Ms. Marshall, officers are at the Holloway residence. Your children are inside. They're safe. Elena's knees buckled. Diana caught her. Thank God, Elena whispered. Thank God. We're going to transport them to a secure location. I need you to come to the central precinct. We'll bring your children there. I'm on my way. She hung up and looked at Diana. I need your car. I'm driving. You're in no condition. They ran to Diana's sedan and peeled out of the parking garage. Diana drove like a woman possessed, running yellow lights and weaving through traffic. How did he get out? Elena asked, her voice shaking. You said bail was revoked. You said he was secure. I don't know. Someone inside must have helped him. A guard, a lawyer, someone he paid off. He's been planning this. The whole time we thought we were winning, he was planning this. Diana didn't answer, because they both knew it was true. Marcus Whitmore never lost control. Even sitting in a jail cell, even facing federal charges, he had been 3 steps ahead. Elena's phone rang. Unknown number. Her blood turned to ice. She answered. Hello. Elena. Marcus's voice was calm, almost pleasant. I hear you've been busy today. Where are you? That's not important. What's important is that you understand something. This isn't over. It will never be over. You took everything from me, and I'm going to take everything from you. The police know you've escaped. Every officer in the city is looking for you. Marcus laughed. The police? Elena, I own half the police in this city. Who do you think helped me walk out of that facility? Elena's stomach dropped. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself how many times the cops looked the other way when you called about our arguments. Ask yourself why no one ever followed up on those hospital visits. Ask yourself why it took 3 years and a federal court to even get someone to listen to you. Elena couldn't breathe. I built this city, Marcus continued. I funded campaigns. I made donations. I created jobs. These people owe me. And when this is over, when the dust settles, I'll still be standing. And you'll be nothing. What do you want? I want you to drop the charges, all of them. I want you to recant your testimony and tell the court you fabricated the evidence. And I want full custody of my children. Never. Then I want you to remember this moment. Remember that I gave you a chance. Remember that you chose this. The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone. What did he say? Diana demanded. He wants me to drop everything, recant my testimony, give him the kids. You can't do that. I know. Elena, if you back down now, he wins. He goes free. He gets the children. And he'll spend the rest of his life punishing you for what you did in that courtroom. I know. Diana pulled into the precinct parking lot. Then what are you going to do? Elena looked at her. I'm going to end this. The precinct was chaos. Officers running, phones ringing, radios crackling with updates. Elena pushed through it all searching for her children. She found them in a small interview room sitting on plastic chairs with a young female officer. Noah was playing with a toy car someone had given him. Emma was staring at the wall, her face blank. "Mom!" Noah jumped up and ran to her. Elena caught him and held him so tight she could feel his heartbeat against her chest. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Why are there so many police cars? Did something bad happen?" Elena looked at Emma over Noah's head. Her daughter hadn't moved. "Emma, honey. He's out, isn't he?" Emma's voice was flat. "Dad escaped." Elena set Noah down and crossed to her daughter. "Yes, he escaped. But the police are looking for him. We're going to be safe." "No, we're not." Emma finally looked at her, and Elena saw something terrible in her daughter's eyes. Not fear, resignation. "He's going to find us. He always finds us. That's why you could never leave. That's why we had to stay in that house for so long. Because you knew he'd find us." Elena knelt in front of her. "Emma, listen to me. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm not scared of him anymore. And I'm not going to let him hurt you or Noah. Do you understand? How are you going to stop him?" Elena didn't have an answer. Because the truth was, she didn't know how to stop Marcus. She had planned for courtrooms and lawyers and judges. She had not planned for this. Detective Morrison appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Marshall, a word." Elena squeezed Emma's hand and followed him into the hallway. "We've got a problem," Morrison said quietly. "Whitmore's lawyer just filed an emergency motion claiming you kidnapped the children." "What?" "He's arguing that the custody ruling was based on fabricated evidence and therefore isn't valid. He's asking for an emergency hearing to reverse it." "That's insane. The evidence is real. The court verified it." "I know, but here's the thing. The motion was filed by a judge's assistant, not through normal channels. Someone is pushing this through fast." Elena felt sick. "Marcus said he owns people in the system." "I believe him. We've got at least 2 officers being questioned right now about how he got out of custody. This thing goes deep." "So what do I do?" Morrison hesitated. "Officially, I can't tell you to do anything. But unofficially, if I were you, I'd get those kids somewhere safe. Somewhere off the grid. Somewhere even Whitmore's contacts can't find." "You're telling me to run?" "I'm telling you to survive. This man has resources you can't fight with lawyers and courtrooms. Sometimes the only way to win is to disappear." Elena thought about it. She could take the children and vanish. Start over somewhere new. Change their names. Build a different life. But then Marcus would win. He would tell everyone she was unstable, that she fled with the children, that everything she said in court was a lie. Her evidence would be discredited. Sophia would be left to face him alone. And Diana would lose her license. Everyone who had helped her would suffer, and Marcus would walk free. "No," Elena said. Morrison blinked. "No. I'm not running. I've spent 12 years being afraid of that man. 3 years planning how to take him down. I'm not going to throw all of that away because he escaped custody. Ms. Marshall, with all due respect, this isn't a courtroom anymore. This is a man with nothing to lose who wants to hurt you. The rules don't apply." "Then I'll make new rules." She walked back into the interview room. "Diana, I need you to call the prosecutor. Tell her we're ready to testify, all of us. Me, Sophia, anyone else who has evidence against Marcus." Diana stared at her. "Elena, are you sure?" "I'm sure. We're not hiding. We're not running. We're going to stand up in court and tell the truth and let Marcus try to stop us. He might actually try to stop you. Physically. Then we'll have armed guards, federal marshals, whatever it takes." Elena looked at her children. "I'm done being scared. I'm done letting him control my life. It ends now." The next 48 hours were a blur. Diana worked around the clock coordinating with the federal prosecutor's office. They assembled a team of marshals to protect Elena and the children. Sophia was moved to a secure location and prepped for her testimony. The judge who had accepted Marcus's emergency motion was quietly removed from the case and placed under investigation. 2 police officers were arrested for accepting bribes. The walls around Marcus's empire were starting to crumble. But Marcus himself remained at large. Every hour that passed without an arrest made Elena more nervous. He was out there somewhere watching, waiting, planning. On the 3rd day, she got a call from an unknown number. She answered without thinking. Elena. Marcus's voice was different now, strained, desperate. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Please, just listen. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to see my children. One last time. You lost that right when you pushed Noah down the stairs. That was an accident. You know it was an accident. I was stressed. I'd been drinking. I never meant to. Save it for the jury. There won't be a jury if you don't testify. Elena, please, I'm begging you. Drop the charges. Let me see my kids. We can work something out. Elena was quiet for a long moment. 3 years ago, she would have believed him. She would have heard the desperation in his voice and thought maybe, just maybe, he could change. She would have given him another chance because that's what good wives did. But she wasn't a wife anymore, and she knew exactly what Marcus was. Turn yourself in, she said. Face what you've done. That's the only way you'll ever see them again. I can't do that. You know what they'll do to me in prison. A man like me with my money, my profile, I won't survive a week. Then you should have thought about that before you hurt a 7-year-old child. Elena. Goodbye, Marcus. She hung up. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger. From the realization that she had wasted 12 years of her life on a man who saw his own children as bargaining chips. That night, the federal marshals moved Elena and the children to a safe house outside the city. It was a small cabin near the mountains surrounded by trees and protected by armed guards. Noah thought it was an adventure. He ran through the rooms, explored the woods behind the house, made friends with the marshals who played cards with him in the evenings. Emma was quieter. She spent most of her time reading or staring out the window, watching the road as if expecting her father to appear at any moment. On the 5th night, Elena found her daughter sitting on the porch in the dark. Can't sleep. Elena sat down beside her. I keep thinking about that night. October 14th. I heard Noah scream. I wanted to come out of my room, but I was too scared. Emma, you were 9 years old. There was nothing you could have done. I could have called 911. I could have run to a neighbor. I could have done something. Elena put her arm around her daughter. Listen to me. What happened that night was not your fault. It was not Noah's fault. It was not my fault. The only person responsible for what happened is your father. He made a choice to hurt someone smaller and weaker than him. That's on him, not you. Do you think he'll ever stop? Elena looked out at the dark trees. I don't know, but I do know that we're not going to let him control our lives anymore. Whatever happens, we face it together. Okay. Emma leaned into her mother's shoulder. Okay. They sat there in the darkness, mother and daughter, waiting for the dawn. The trial began on a Tuesday. Elena walked into the federal courthouse flanked by marshals, Diana on one side and the prosecutor on the other. The press was everywhere, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. She kept her eyes forward and didn't answer any of them. The courtroom was packed, every seat taken, people lined up against the walls. This was the trial of the decade, the fall of a Seattle Titan, and everyone wanted to see it happen. Marcus was there. They had caught him 2 days earlier hiding in a cabin in Oregon. He had tried to flee to Canada, but was stopped at the border. Now, he sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his face gaunt, his eyes burning with hatred. When Elena walked in, their eyes met. She didn't look away, neither did he. All rise, the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Sandra Mitchell presiding. A new judge, a federal judge, someone Marcus couldn't buy. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Elena testified for 2 days. She told the jury everything: the abuse, the control, the night Marcus pushed Noah down the stairs. She showed them the evidence she had gathered over 3 years: bank records, phone logs, the recording from the baby monitor. She cried when they played Noah's scream in the courtroom. She saw several jurors wipe their eyes too. Sophia testified next. She told them about the Singapore Trust, about the bribes to police officers, about watching Marcus push a child and then coldly instruct her to cover it up. Marcus's lawyer tried to destroy her, called her a gold digger, a liar, a scorned mistress seeking revenge. Sophia held firm. "I loved him," she said quietly. "I thought he loved me. But the man I thought I loved doesn't exist. The real Marcus Whitmore is the man who pushed a 7-year-old down a flight of stairs and didn't even check to see if he was breathing." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and looked directly at Marcus. "On the count of child abuse in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty." Marcus didn't move. "On the count of perjury, we find the defendant guilty." His lawyer whispered something in his ear. Marcus ignored him. "On the count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of witness tampering, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. 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 Guilty." 12 counts in total, 12 convictions. Judge Mitchell set sentencing for 60 days later. As the marshals led Marcus away in chains, he turned to look at Elena one final time. She expected rage, threats, the promise of revenge. Instead, she saw something she had never seen on his face before. Fear. Real fear. The fear of a man who had finally lost everything. Elena watched them take him through the side door, and she felt something shift inside her chest. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't relief. It was something quieter than that. It was freedom. 12 years of fear dissolved in a single word from a jury foreman: guilty. She walked out of that courtroom with her head held high, and for the first time in as long as she could remember, she didn't look over her shoulder. 60 days felt like 60 years. Elena spent the time between the verdict and sentencing trying to rebuild something that resembled a normal life. She rented a small apartment in Ballard, 3 bedrooms, nothing fancy. Noah started 2nd grade at a new school where nobody knew his father's name. Emma began 8th grade with a fresh notebook and a therapist she actually liked. But normal was a lie they told themselves. Every night Elena checked the locks twice. Every morning she scanned the street before letting the children outside. Every time her phone rang from an unknown number, her heart stopped. Marcus was in custody, maximum security, no bail, no visitors except his lawyers. But his shadow still stretched across their lives. 2 weeks before sentencing, Diana called with news. Victor Stone filed a motion for a reduced sentence. He's arguing that Marcus has shown remorse and is willing to make restitution. Elena laughed bitterly. Remorse? He tried to flee the country. I know, but here's the thing. The motion includes a letter from Marcus to the judge. He's asking for a chance to address the court at sentencing. He wants to speak. He wants to apologize. To you, to the children, in front of everyone. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. It's a performance. Everything with him is a performance. Probably. But the judge might allow it. Defendants have the right to make a statement before sentencing. What do I do? You have the right to make a victim impact statement too. You can speak directly to the judge about how his crimes affected you and the children. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I'll think about it. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything she could say, everything Marcus had taken from her, the years of fear, the isolation, the way he had made her believe she was worthless, that no one would ever believe her, that she was lucky he put up with her at all. She thought about Noah's scar, about Emma's nightmares, about the 12 years she had spent walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger his rage. She thought about Sophia, who was rebuilding her own life in another city, trying to escape the wreckage Marcus had left behind. She thought about all the women she had met in Diana's waiting room over the past 3 years. Women with bruises they tried to hide. Women with children they were terrified to lose. Women who stayed because leaving seemed more dangerous than staying. By morning, she knew what she had to do. The day of sentencing arrived cold and gray. Elena dressed carefully. Not the gray dress she had worn to the first hearing. Something different. A deep blue suit that Diana had helped her pick out. Professional, strong. The clothes of a woman who was done hiding. She left the children with Margaret. Noah had cried when she told him he couldn't come. Emma had simply nodded her face, unreadable. "Come back, okay?" Emma had said quietly. "I'll always come back." The courthouse was even more crowded than it had been during the trial. News crews from across the country had descended on Seattle. This wasn't just a local story anymore. It was national. The billionaire and the quiet wife. The recording that changed everything. Elena walked through the crowd with her head high. Inside the courtroom was packed to capacity. Judge Mitchell was already on the bench reviewing documents. Victor Stone sat at the defense table looking exhausted. And there was Marcus. He looked different than she remembered, smaller somehow. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. He had lost weight. His hair was grayer, his face lined with new wrinkles. Prison had not been kind to him. Good, Elena thought. Let him suffer. "All rise," the bailiff announced as Judge Mitchell called the court to order. "We are here for the sentencing of Marcus Whitmore, convicted on 12 counts, including child abuse, perjury, fraud, and obstruction of justice." Judge Mitchell looked at the defense table. "Mr. Stone, I understand your client wishes to address the court." Stone stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client would like to make a statement expressing his remorse and asking for the court's mercy." "Very well. Mr. Whitmore, you may speak." Marcus rose slowly, chains clinking. He turned to face the gallery, and his eyes found Elena immediately. She didn't look away. "Your Honor." Marcus began, his voice rougher than she remembered. "I stand before you today as a broken man. I have lost everything. My company, my reputation, my freedom, and most importantly, my family." He paused, swallowing hard. "I know that nothing I say can undo what I've done. I hurt my son. I hurt my wife. I hurt people who trusted me. I was arrogant. I was cruel. I let power and money convince me that I was above consequences." Elena watched him carefully. He was good at this. He had always been good at this. The humble confession, the tears gathering in his eyes, the trembling voice. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I am asking for mercy, not for my sake, but for the sake of my children. They need a father. They need to know that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us forever." He turned to look directly at Elena. "Elena, I know you're here. I know you're listening. And I want you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry, for everything I put you through, for every time I made you feel small, for every time I used my power to control you." Tears were streaming down his face now. "I was sick. I know that now. The pressure, the stress, the drinking, none of it excuses what I did, but I want you to understand that wasn't the real me. The real me loved you. The real me loved our children, and the real me would never have hurt Noah if I had been in my right mind." He turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, I'm asking for a chance to get help, to become the man my children deserve. Please, have mercy." He sat down. The courtroom was silent. Elena felt Diana's hand on her arm. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Do you still want to speak?" Elena stood up. "Your Honor, I would like to make a victim impact statement. Judge Mitchell nodded. Please proceed, Ms. Marshall. Elena walked to the podium. She had prepared notes, but she left them on the table. She didn't need them. Your Honor, I just listened to my ex-husband tell this court that he was sick, that he wasn't in his right mind, that the man who pushed our 7-year-old son down a flight of stairs wasn't the real Marcus Whitmore. She turned to face him. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Marcus's expression flickered. The man who hurt Noah is exactly who Marcus Whitmore is. I know because I lived with him for 12 years. I saw that man every day. Not just when he was drinking. Not just when he was stressed. Every single day. Elena's voice was steady. He controlled what I wore, what I ate, who I talked to. He monitored my phone, my emails, my bank accounts. He told me I was stupid, that I was lucky to have him, that no one else would ever want me. And I believed him. For 12 years, I believed him. She looked at the jury box empty now, but still somehow watching. When Noah spilled juice on his briefcase, Marcus didn't lose control. He made a choice. He chose to grab a child by the arm and throw him down the stairs. And then he chose to cover it up. He paid the nanny $50,000 to lie. He coached his girlfriend on what to say. He looked me in the eyes and told me I was imagining things. Elena's hands were shaking now, but her voice remained strong. That's not sickness. That's cruelty. Calculated, deliberate cruelty from a man who believes the rules don't apply to him. She turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I'm not here to ask for revenge. I'm not here because I hate Marcus, although God knows I have every right to. I'm here because there are thousands of women in this country living the life I lived. Women who are told they're crazy. Women who are told no one will believe them. Women who stay because they're afraid of what will happen if they leave. Elena's voice cracked. I want those women to know that it's possible to get out. It's possible to build a case. It's possible to stand up in court and tell the truth, even when a man with billions of dollars is trying to destroy you. She took a deep breath. My son still has nightmares. My daughter flinches when men raise their voices. I still check the locks 3 times before I go to bed. Marcus Whitmore didn't just hurt us physically. He planted fear in our bones that may never fully heal. She looked at Marcus one final time. He says he wants mercy. He says he wants a chance to change. But I remember every chance I gave him. Every time I believed his apologies. Every time I told myself it would be different. She shook her head. It was never different, and it never will be. Elena turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I'm asking you to give Marcus Whitmore the maximum sentence allowed by law, not for revenge, not for hatred, but because some men don't stop hurting people until someone stops them. She returned to her seat. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Judge Mitchell was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents in front of her. Then she looked up. I've reviewed the pre-sentencing reports, the victim impact statements, and the defendant's request for mercy. I've also reviewed the evidence presented at trial, including the recording of Mr. Whitmore assaulting his minor child. She removed her glasses and looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Whitmore, I've been on the bench for 23 years. I've sentenced drug dealers, murderers, and corporate criminals. I've heard every excuse imaginable. But I have rarely encountered someone as thoroughly convinced of their own innocence as you. Marcus shifted in his seat. You didn't just hurt your son. You systematically covered it up. You bribed a witness. You lied under oath. You fled custody. And when you were finally caught, you had the audacity to stand before this court and blame your behavior on stress and alcohol. Judge Mitchell's voice hardened. That's not remorse, Mr. Whitmore. That's manipulation. And I've seen enough manipulators to recognize one when he's standing in my courtroom. She picked up her gavel. For the count of child abuse in the first degree, I sentence you to 8 years in federal prison. For perjury, 4 years to run consecutively. For obstruction of justice, 3 years consecutive. For witness tampering, 2 years consecutive. For wire fraud and related financial crimes, 5 years consecutive. Elena did the math in her head. 22 years. Additionally, Judge Mitchell continued, I am ordering lifetime supervised probation following release, permanent revocation of parental rights, and full restitution to the victims in an amount to be determined by the court. Marcus's face went white. You will never have unsupervised contact with your children again. You will never hold a position of corporate authority again. And when you finally leave prison, Mr. Whitmore, you will be a 70-year-old man with nothing. She slammed the gavel. Court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Victor Stone slumped in his chair, defeated. And Marcus Whitmore was led away in chains, 22 years of his life, erased in a single moment. Elena sat very still as the chaos swirled around her. Diana grabbed her arm. Elena, we did it. It's over. Is it? Yes, it's over. He's gone. Elena looked at the door Marcus had disappeared through. The door that led to handcuffs and prison cells and a future he had never imagined. She waited for the satisfaction to hit, the triumph, the vindication. Instead, she felt something softer. Relief. Bone-deep, soul-healing relief. It was finally truly over. That night, Elena took her children to Margaret's house for dinner. Nothing fancy. Pot roast and mashed potatoes and chocolate cake for dessert. Noah ate 3 slices of cake and fell asleep on the couch before 8 o'clock. Emma stayed up late sitting on the porch with Elena watching the stars come out. What happens now? Emma asked. Now we live. Really live. Without being afraid. What does that feel like? Elena thought about it. I don't know yet. But I think we're going to find out together. Emma was quiet for a moment. Mom, thank you. For what? For fighting. For not giving up. For being stronger than he was. Elena pulled her daughter close. I wasn't strong, Emma. I was terrified every single day. But I did it anyway. And that's the secret, you know. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being afraid and doing the hard thing anyway. Emma leaned into her mother's shoulder. I want to be like you when I grow up. Elena smiled. No, I want you to be better. I want you to never need to be as brave as I was. I want you to find someone who loves you without conditions, without control, without fear. That's what I want for you. What about you? Me. Will you ever date again? Fall in love again? Elena laughed softly. Maybe someday, when I remember what it feels like to trust someone. But right now, I have everything I need. I have you. I have Noah. I have a future that belongs to me. She looked up at the stars. That's enough. That's more than enough. 1 year later, Elena stood at a podium in a hotel ballroom. The Domestic Violence Legal Aid Coalition was hosting their annual fundraiser, and they had asked her to speak. The room was full of lawyers, social workers, survivors, and donors. Diana sat in the front row, beaming. 1 year ago, Elena began, I walked into a courtroom convinced I was going to lose everything. My children, my home, my dignity. My ex-husband had money, power, and an army of lawyers. I had a box of files and a public defender who believed me when no one else did. She looked at Diana. I won. Not because I was smarter than him. Not because I was richer or more connected. I won because I was patient. Because I gathered evidence. Because I waited for the right moment to tell the truth. Elena paused. But I didn't do it alone. I had Diana Chen who took my case when bigger firms wouldn't touch it. I had Judge Mitchell who saw through the manipulation and delivered justice. I had Sophia who risked everything to help me even though we were supposed to be enemies. She looked out at the crowd. And I had every woman who came before me. Every survivor who stood up in court and told her story. Every advocate who fought to change the laws. Every person who refused to accept that powerful men can do whatever they want without consequences. Elena's voice strengthened. Tonight, I'm announcing the creation of the Marshall Foundation for Survivor Support. We're going to provide free legal services to domestic violence survivors. We're going to fund forensic accountants who can trace hidden assets. We're going to train lawyers how to recognize financial abuse and help victims escape it. The room applauded. But more than that, we're going to tell survivors one simple truth. A truth I wish someone had told me 12 years ago. Elena leaned into the microphone. You are not crazy. You are not imagining things. And you are not alone. There are people who will believe you. There are people who will fight for you. And there are people who will stand with you in that courtroom when the time comes. She stepped back from the podium. My name is Elena Marshall. I was married to a monster for 12 years. And I won. The room rose to its feet. Elena stood there bathed in applause, thinking about the woman she used to be. The woman who flinched at footsteps. The woman who checked her husband's mood before speaking. The woman who believed she was worthless. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who had walked through fire and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. After the speech, after the handshakes and the photographs and the donation pledges, Elena slipped outside for a moment of quiet. Diana found her there looking up at the Seattle skyline. You okay? I'm good. I'm really good. You should be. That speech was incredible. Elena smiled. I meant every word. I know you did. Diana hesitated. Elena, I have something for you. She handed over an envelope. Elena opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Marcus in his orange jumpsuit standing in a prison yard. He looked old, broken, defeated. Where did you get this? A contact at the facility. I thought you might want to see what you accomplished. Elena looked at the photograph for a long moment. Then she tore it in half. I don't need to see him anymore, she said quietly. He doesn't exist for me. She let the pieces fall from her fingers and watched them flutter away in the evening breeze. Let's go back inside, Elena said. There are survivors in there who need to hear that they can win. They walked back toward the light and warmth of the ballroom. Behind them, the torn photograph landed in a puddle and slowly dissolved. 2 years after that night, Elena received a letter. It was from the federal prison in Oregon. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Her first instinct was to burn it. Instead, she opened it. Elena, I know you probably won't read this, but I need to try. I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. I finally understand what I did to you, to the children, to everyone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. For everything. Marcus. Elena read the letter twice. Then she put it in a drawer with the other letters he had sent over the years. She never responded to any of them. Some wounds don't heal with apologies. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. But Elena had learned something in the years since that courtroom. Holding on to hatred was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She didn't forgive Marcus, but she no longer needed to. He was a chapter in her life that was finally permanently closed, and she had so many more chapters left to write. 10 years after the trial, Elena stood in her kitchen making breakfast. Noah was 18 now, heading to college in the fall. He wanted to study psychology to help children who had been through trauma. The scar near his hairline had faded to a thin white line that was barely visible unless you knew to look. Emma was 23, finishing law school. She planned to work for the Marshall Foundation when she graduated. She had her mother's determination and her grandmother's fire. And Elena was happy. Not the fragile, conditional happiness she had pretended to feel during her marriage. Real happiness. The kind that came from waking up in a home she had built herself, surrounded by children who knew they were loved, free from the shadow of a man who had once controlled every aspect of her existence. The doorbell rang. Elena wiped her hands and went to answer it. Diana stood on the porch holding a bottle of champagne. It's official, Diana said, grinning. The foundation just hit its 10-year anniversary. We've helped over 5,000 survivors, and the city council just approved naming the new women's shelter after you. Elena laughed. They did not. The Elena Marshall House for Women and Children has a nice ring to it. Elena shook her head. I didn't do all this for recognition. I know. That's why you deserve it. They sat on the porch together, drinking champagne, watching the sun rise over the city. Do you ever think about him? Diana asked. Marcus. Yeah. Elena was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. Not with anger anymore. Just curiosity, I guess. Wondering what he thinks about in that cell. Wondering if he ever really understood what he lost. Does it matter? No. Elena smiled. It doesn't matter at all. She lifted her glass. To the next 10 years. To the next 10 years. They drank together as the morning light spread across Seattle. And Elena Marshall, the woman who had once been too afraid to speak, finally knew what freedom tasted like. It tasted like champagne and sunshine and the laughter of her children and the knowledge that she had won. Not just the court case, not just the custody battle. She had won her life back, and no one would ever take it from her again. Elena Marshall proved that the most powerful weapon in any fight isn't money or connections or a team of expensive lawyers. It's the truth, spoken at the right moment, by someone brave enough to tell it. Her silence was never weakness, it was strategy, and in the end, it was the loudest voice in the room.